Well, Liev Schreiber, the second season of Ray Donovan aired earlier this year. Tell me from the very first pilot episode through the last episode of the second season, where is Ray now compared to where you first brought him in?
He's in a pretty bad place. I guess he started in a bad place, but I think things have really sort of fallen apart at home. I think that's the saving grace of Ray in the first season was that he had his family to back him up, and I think at the end of two, those resources may no longer be available to him.
Well, like most great drama series, I mean, you and the producers, I mean, you've really left a great cliffhanger to lead off for season 3. Will season 3, will it start immediately after season 2, or will there be a time jump?
I'm not entirely sure, but there's been talk about both, and what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a little bit of a time jump, but I'm not positive. That decision hasn't been committed.
Yeah, a lot of shows, they do it either way, and the great thing about a time jump is you could still go back and do flashbacks to whatever happened in that time in between.
Yeah, I think what we're thinking about at this point is Ray has been on his own for a little bit, but I don't want to say anything because I know the writers of the show don't want me to commit to any of that yet.
That's okay. The great, you mentioned family earlier. The great thing I think about this show is how you blend that world of his family and how much family means to him, and then this great job. I mean, I don't think anybody in TV history's had a job like this as the lead character on a TV show.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that first grabbed my attention about the show was, I guess, being a new father myself, that it explored some of those ideas about fatherhood and contemporary masculinity.
Well, fatherhood from both directions, because you got to contend with your own father, Mickey, played by Jon Voight.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a good and a bad side to everything.
You are basically a film actor, theater actor, and I've asked other people like this, especially I've talked to like Jeff Daniels and folks like that. Why right now? Why are so many film stars doing television series?
There's a number of reasons that I think go into answering that. I think probably the main reason is that the writing is so good. For the most part, the independent film world has kind of really taken a beating in the past 5 or 10 years, and so a lot of those outlets for writers and directors and actors have disappeared because of the difficulty in financing films. So those people, to support their families and as a creative outlet, have moved over to television, and that's created an opportunity for people like me and maybe Jeff. I also think it's one of those things that happens in your life when you have a couple of children and suddenly you're thinking about putting them through college and you want a steady job and some consistency in your life. You can't be, it's not as easy to sort of be flying around the world all the time and counting on a 2-month job here or a 2-month job there. There's something nice about the stability of having an office, as it were, that every day you go to work with the same people and you make a steady amount of money over the year. Especially when you're starting a family, that can be really useful.
You've directed before, but this season you directed your first episode of Ray Donovan, Walk This Way. Tell me about the difficulty of being the lead in a show, which I've heard is one of the most difficult in terms of hours for an actor, a drama lead actor, and also directing that episode.
Had I known what the commitment was to be #1 on the call sheet for a 1-hour drama, I would have never done it. It's a really intense process, and the schedule is brutal. I've always enjoyed directing, and I thought it would be fun to direct this cast because I equate this cast to an amazing sports car that if you have a chance to drive it, you absolutely should. They're remarkable, each and every one of them, and I was really looking forward to it. The hard part is that by episode 7, which is the one I directed, I was already pretty exhausted from the season, and on top of that, you're in every shot, which I didn't think would be a problem because I really, Rob McLaughlin, the DP, and I have a great relationship, and I thought that I would be able to handle that, and I did, but one of the things that I noticed about television as opposed to films, because in films you sort of set everything up ahead of time, whereas in television I find that you're improvising transitions a lot, and in many ways television, particularly the way our writers write, is about transitions, and so adapting to the transitions as they appear was very difficult because you have to be watching composition, but I loved it. I mean, as brutal and difficult as it was, I loved every day of it.
You going to attempt another one this season?
Yes, they have approached me to do another one, and I'm dragging my feet a little bit, but it's a great opportunity.
John Hamm has directed an episode, I think, each of the last 3 or 4 seasons of Mad Men, but he says he'll only do it if it's either the first or second episode of the season because of the prep time involved.
I think that's the smart way to do it, is the first or second episode. At this point, they've approached me about the finale, which is, in my mind, probably the worst option for an actor, but we'll see.
Yeah, lots of bells and whistles in a finale, especially.
Yeah.
Talking about the cast, we mentioned Jon Voight a minute ago, one of my favorite all-time actors. You've had so many legendary actors you've worked with in your career at different projects. What makes him special?
Well, I don't think this would be what it is without Jon. He's so remarkable in the show, and he's such a bold actor. He does. He really just. He really lets it go, and I think that in a slightly ageist society, it's interesting to see a guy like Jon shake it up. And I think that Ann, as a writer, and the writers on the show have really given him ample opportunity to show his stuff, and we all know how wonderful he is. So it's great. It's great having people like that to play off of.
Well, Golden Globe nominations are coming out soon. You were nominated last year. Jon won the Golden Globe. Being there in that room that night, what was that like for you, seeing him up on stage?
It was pretty emotional. I didn't expect it to be, but I was very happy for Jon. He deserves it. He comes to work every day. He has a tremendous attitude. One of the things that I really love the most about Jon, aside from his incredible talent, is his enthusiasm and his good spirit. There are times on that show when I can get down, when anyone would get down. It's a very dark show, and the hours are really tough. And playing those characters can be rough sometimes. And Jon always has a smile, and he always has a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and optimism, which gets you through the day.
Your show has so many great guest stars, regular players like Elliot Gould. You had James Woods the first season, Rosanna Arquette, and Margaret, Hank Azaria. I mean, why do you think this particular show draws so many top people like that?
I think it's less and less a secret, but actors know actors, and they know that the cast on our show is really, really wonderful. They are collectively a wonderful cast, and some of them may not be that well known to people who aren't in the business, but for other actors who are in the business, they know that that there's a really remarkable group of actors that work here. Paula Malcolmson, Dash Myhawk, Eddie Marsan, Brooke Smith, Pooch Hall. These are all people in the industry that are very well respected, and I think that is a feather in their cap. I also think that a big part of it is the writing. People enjoy the scripts.
Every actor is looking for a great playground.
Everybody what?
Every actor is looking for a great playground.
Absolutely.
Back to awards for a second. You've done so much stage work, off Broadway, on Broadway. I would imagine the Tony Awards you got for Glengarry Glen Ross is just like one of the highlights of your life.
It is. Every week or so, I give it a spin.
No, we're not going to ever see that one on eBay.
No, no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
What you another role that you had that brought you an awards push was playing Orson Welles in RKO back in '99. Just that's one of my favorite things you've ever done. That had to be daunting though, just to even attempt to play Orson Welles.
It was terrifying, you know, especially because my family in particular are huge Wells fans, and there are friends of mine who were friends and associates of his. So it was a very daunting task. I remember asking Peter Bogdanovich, you know, what he thought about me playing Orson Welles, and he kind of winced. And then he said, "So, well, you know, at least it'll be you, darling." And I thought, well, that's really encouraging. Thanks, Peter.
Well, in addition to Orson Welles, I know one of your favorites, and I loved this 2 years ago, is Dustin Hoffman, and you got to do part of his tribute there at the Kennedy Center Honors. Why is he special in your life?
I've always admired Dustin as an actor. I think he kind of changed the model for leading men in the '70s. One of the actors who participated in that change. But when I was young and I just gotten out of school, he hired me for a very small film that was very close to my heart because of my grandfather who had just passed away, called A Walk on the Moon. And Dustin was the producer on that, and we, you know, well, we first met on Sphere and became friends, and then him hiring me for that part meant a lot to me.
I love seeing you on that special, not only because you were there to honor him, but you did an impression of him, which I thought was great. Was that scary to do that in front of him like that, in front of all those people?
Terrifying. I'd never really done it before, but people had told me that I sound like Dustin, so I actually tried it that night, and that was it. So it was particularly terrifying. Yeah.
He say anything to you afterwards about it?
No, he was he was so moved by the whole thing, you know. I think he was sort of seeing his life flash before his eyes, and
that's one of my favorite specials every year. I just think they do that in Washington. They do that upright so well that to honor, you know, the artistic world. Any other hidden impressions that we don't know about?
I'm not very good at impressions. I do the standards. I do like what every guy does. I can do Walken, a little Sean Connery, my mother, but that's pretty much it. Michael Caine, yeah. Sorry, Naomi just told me.
Well, I want to ask you. I'm glad she's there because this is a good question for both of you. Not that I'm expecting her to come in for the interview, but I ask a lot of Oscar voters this. You've been an Oscar voter for half a decade now. When you're marking your ballot for winners or nominations, what kind of draws your attention? What makes you want to vote for them?
When I'm the performance, the quality of the performance, the depth of the performance. Is it a humanistic performance? Is it something that captures my imagination and inspires me, both as an actor and as an audience? Yeah.
Do you follow along with the precursors, the awards, the critics awards, all that, or do you just go on your own?
It's hard to keep up with all of that stuff, but I as much as, you know, when I see bits and bobs about it, I look. But there's so many of them now that they're hard to keep track of.
That would be the thing I would have the hardest trouble with, is just, I'm sure you've got a massive number of screeners and just trying to keep up with all of the different ones that people are telling you to watch.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, no, that's one of the great things about the holiday season, though.
That's right. You could just lay back on the couch and watch 10 movies in a weekend.
Building. Let me just pull this shade down. Hold
on. Sure. I have that problem here when I do afternoon interviews.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, no problem. The reason I mentioned Naomi is I asked this question. The only other time I think I interviewed somebody who had a spouse also in the Academy was William H. Macy, and I asked him about him and Felicity. I said, "This is unique because do the two of you do you argue over performances? Who are we going to mark on our ballots? Do you agree? I mean, what
No,
goes on between the two of you in terms of Oscar voting?"
we never really discuss it. We do it privately for the most part.
you
You
don't
know.
you don't watch something together and go, "Oh, I like that," and "No, I didn't like that."
Oh, sure. I mean, we agree. I think, you know, we watch them together, so I think I would say typically we're in agreement about almost everything. But who knows? You know. I mean, I said there is that I've you know I vote for her most of the time.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. We interviewed her a couple of years ago for The Impossible, and I said at the time that was my favorite performance, male or female, of that whole year. I just love that.
She was wonderful.
Well, Liev, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and good luck with the Globes and SAG Awards coming up here in the near future. And we'll look forward to season 3 of Ray Donovan.
Thanks for having me.